And the initial verse, permanence, joy, greater self, and purity are the four, which you would come to that in the next slide. Only in the minds of the Buddha is there perfect mirror wisdom. Okay, this perfection of the wisdom, the supreme enlightenment. That's where the perfect wisdom is arrived at. That if you understand the 10 grounds, bodhisattvahood, the 10th bhumi, that's where the perfect knowledge is also attained, the perfect wisdom, or the primordial wisdom is being attained at the 10th ground. With minds clear and tranquil, we are at peace. And this has been mentioned a number of times by Master. We attain great freedom with Dhamma as our guiding teacher. And so now that the Buddha attained parinirvana, and that's what the Buddha told Ananda, that the Dhamma is our guiding teacher. So in Master's explanation of the four virtues and permanence, so all things are illusory. How can there be permanence? Remember, that's always been mentioned by Master, the four states. But then the truth in the Dhamma, permanent means to be unchanging, unwavering. The truth cannot be changed. And secondly, about joyful, remember the worldly happiness, the worldly joy is actually non-lasting. Okay, and feeling is suffering. And this is also in the fourfold mindfulness. So therefore, the joy means to be at peace, stable, and tranquil. And that is the inner joy that is referring to. And an inner joy is explained to you before, that I take it as a sympathetic joy. And what about self? Self refers to everlasting greater self. And this is what the greatest self is. So the self that we know, the worldly self that we know, is not the lasting self. So the greater self can only arise when you lose that self. You got to lose the first self, the worldly self, to attain the non-self, and that's the selfless nature. And that is the greater self that's referring to. So this greater self refers to one who is benevolent, right, by putting the interests of others before the self. And that's why greater self, that's what's the big difference between a small love and a great love. Purity, are we pure? Purity, it is free of defilements and contamination. And but because we have been covered by layers and layers of incrustation, and this incrustation, all the affliction and the transgression we have in the past. So all these things refer to, obviously, if we then look at all this, this is like the other side of the fourfold mindfulness, right? In the fourfold mindfulness, a body is impure. But so the body is in itself is impure. So therefore, we need to purify. The feeling is suffering. Joy means to be peaceful. Feeling is suffering. That's worldly feeling. So we need to go into inner joy. The third one, the mind is impermanent. Mind is impermanent, and here we talk about the Dhamma, the truth is permanent. And then the last one, phenomena. Phenomenon is without self. And the phenomenon is without self because it's a manifestation of the mind. So therefore, the manifestation of the mind because of the smaller self. So therefore, the antidote to that is the greater self, to lose that self. So that is what this, I hope you understand what I just said. There's nothing for us to desire, nothing for us to crave, nothing for us to cling to. What we crave instead are true and permanent principles, and that is what is everlasting, and that is the one that is impermanence. So learning the Dhamma, all heroes and practical Buddhas, in order to comprehend that true realization of one vehicle, must have faith in the Buddha's words. This is a battle between being spoken by someone who is supreme enlightened and one who is partially enlightened. But because, and this is the issue that the mind has, because we think we have attained. So therefore, we haven't attained fully. We need to go further, and that part of it requires faith. So if sentient being capabilities are insufficient, we must not improperly transmit teachings to them. So therefore, we've got to be mindful, especially at this time in a Dharma degenerating age, and Dharma will continue to decline until a time in this Kalpa that Dharma does not exist. And that's when Later on after that, that's when the Maitreya Buddha will return. So if we could comprehend, experience the Dharma with deep faith, we can gain true realization and then complete clear in our minds. So if one doesn't even believe and doesn't have faith in certain things, it's just like I can describe to you the beauty of a place, but you don't have faith on what I say, you will never understand. You never seek to understand. And that's what this having deep faith means, because that realization of the profundity of the truth needs one to go deep in our mind. And therefore, if we are not able to attain enlightenment this lifetime, and it take numerous lifetimes forward in the future, then you say, why should I then have faith? So that's the reason why, unless you have the faith that you can attain to attain the true suchness, it's difficult for someone to dive deep down to gain the realization. So the mind of wisdom is an impartial mind. Impartial mind, it means there's no there's no boundaries in the thoughts of that mind. There's no discrimination and everything else, and there's the truth of oneness of all and the compassion to be all equally. The Buddha said that those who agree with like Sariputta still have to have faith. And this was in order to gradually use our own wisdom to realize the ultimate reality of one vehicle and perfect the 10 practices of faith. So what is 10 practices of faith? The faith to have the belief and the trust in that, and that mindfulness. And this is about consciousness. This is the effort that you put in. This is the discerning realization of the truth of the Dharma. And samadhi, you can only gain that in stillness of the mind. Why you need samadhi? Because samadhi suppresses the ego. Samadhi gets rid of the worldly self, non-retreating. Then you got to be very progressive, able to step forward and not to step back or to stop where you are practicing, because you have faith in doing that. And protecting the Dharma, this is obviously it's one of the undertaking, especially for a Sangha member, and for us, we do not slander the Dharma. And dedication of merit, and that's when you, every time you do pray, you always send with a dedication of merit as part of practice, which I will touch on later on the next slide. The precepts is for us not to wander off. This is a discipline that we keep, and a vow is your aspiration that you undertake beyond this lifetime. So if I were to summarize all this, and the 10 practices of faith, number 1 is prove your worthiness. Number 2, get in, live as an exemplary disciple. Number 3, to become a faithful disciple. And number 4, become a beloved of the path. The lessons learned. We must have unwavering faith so that we can walk the bodhisattva path and go among people. Our faith will be firm. Why? Because our faith will be firm, because when we do that, you are actually going through experiential learning, and that will affirm what you have your faith in, right? And you know it works. So this affirmation will give you dive deeper to have a stronger faith, and then we will not retreat. So wisdom comes from samadhi, from an unwavering heart. Why samadhi? Because you see, the door to wisdom, you got to lose the self. That lose the self, you need to go into the calmness, and before you can learn wisdom. I mean, if we hold on to ourselves, how can we learn beyond ourselves? Wisdom cannot be there. You at best you can gain worldly wisdom, but not spiritual wisdom. So we must protect the Dharma by not going astray and continuing forward. We are protecting the Dharma by not going astray. That means that's the reason why I mentioned just now, exemplary practitioner. Exemplary practitioner, because you are the one to represent the Dharma. By not going astray and continuing forward, we are protecting the Dharma. The Buddha Dharma is the principles that can save the world. For Buddha's teaching to cover the world, we must really transform sentient. What do you mean by save the world? Because it's about universal truth, right? So it doesn't matter what background you are, whether you're atheist, religious, or otherwise. So we do not dedicate marriage in exchange for something. Then this dedication of marriage is also another form of giving. So when you you practice the prayers you dedicate your marriage and the marriage that you acquire, you dedicate, especially those who are suffering and in pain, for example. So you do not do so with an expected, and this is the bodhisattva path. So the dedication of marriage means returning to the true principles, which was the true principles, the first parameter, right, of that principle. So when we accept these principles, they will guide us, and this Dharma will be our guiding teacher. And that's what the Buddha told Ananda. Thus, when we accept these principles, we must make great dedication of marriage. So if we want the bodhisattva path and you want to bring others along, obviously, dedication of marriage become part of the practice. So in contemplation, points of contemplation. Sorry, 6:40 now, so very quickly. Begin as a seeker of faith so that you can become a seeker of the truth. Because without the faith, you cannot be a seeker of the truth. So you've got to be a faith first. So inner hope is the silence of the faith that gives you the raw of courage you have within you. Why do you need inner hope? Because even though you have faith, you must go through there will be a lot of obstacles you have to overcome. So it's difficulties you are facing in front of you. So you need to have that courage to get through. So no amount of darkness can overcome light. And that's a problem that sometimes in our practice, we face darkness in our life. But know that when you have faith, you will always hold true to yourself in difficult times. So it should be your aspiration to be tested, but the test will affirm your faith, reaffirm your practice and strengthen your roots. So in relationship, hindering relationship, and we have faced obstacles all over life, even in relationship. So, but obstruction is just another route of the same path. We understand and have faith in what we have in front of us. So with faith, obstacles are indeed supporting steps of progress. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so much, BrotherChin. Marvelous insight.